Well, glad you're here. If you are a guest here, Mosaic, I'm glad you are here. So what I want to do is I want to just take a minute, and not a minute, maybe a couple of minutes, and just talk about something that I think we should talk about, and I think something that we should just kind of wrestle through in our lives, and then maybe we'll end in some response time, and we'll pray, we'll sing a few more songs as well. But I don't know about you, but so growing up, I always wanted to. I want to be a soccer player, you know. And any soccer players? Any people? Soccer people? Really? Really? You are a soccer player? Sweet. So there was actually a particular position I wanted to play in soccer. I wanted to be the forward, which we used to call the striker. And so there are the defenders, the midfielders, and all that. But I didn't want to be that guy. I want to be the striker, and it's not because I was talented to do it. It's just because I wanted to do it. I thought that was like the place, the position that made the biggest difference because those are the people who scored the goals. And so I thought, I want to be that guy. I don't want to be a goalkeeper. Forget that, I didn't want to be a defender. Actually, I was a better defender than I think, than I should, Actually, I was better at defending than I was at striking. But I didn't like that position. I just didn't. And so for that reason, my career did not advance. And another reason, I was not talented. But besides that, I think I would have made it. I could have made it. So here's why I'm talking about that. Because I think when I think of the conversations that the world is having right now, I think that people are talking about the kind of position that we should take in terms of the refugees crisis, in terms of ISIS, in terms of terror that's happening. And I think if you're on Facebook or if you have a pulse and if you can read or hear, you've heard someone's opinion about the kind of position that America should take, right? It's the position. We should do this. We should do that. No, we should not do this. And we should get someone else in office. And you just keep on. You hear the chatter. You just do. You can't get away from it. In fact, Monday I was asked by Lake Forest Church, a church in our community, to come and speak about just my story, and then to do some Q&A with them as well. And I knew where the Q&A was going to go because if you haven't figured it out, I'm from the Middle East, and so and to people, I am the expert on ISIS. So I don't know why, because they're brothers. I don't know. So, but I get it because I'm from that part and I have a beard. So here I am. I'm doing my thing, and then open up for Q&A, and obviously, it goes there, right? And so this person starts asking a question, and then she starts asking a question, but then she starts making a statement, and then she asks another question, then she answers it herself, makes another statement, and she keeps on going for a little bit, and the crowd's like, and then I didn't want to be rude, but I was like, hey, ma'am, do you have a question? I'm trying to figure out your question. And so she basically says some other stuff, and then finally she says this, which is great. She said, well, how can we avoid another 9/11? And the whole crowd was like, what? How do you solve that? What? What am I supposed, how do you, and the pastor, Mike Moses, looked at me like what are you going to do now, buddy? Sorry, good luck, buddy. And I was like, I tell her, well, let me tell you what I think. And so let's just be honest. I think for some of us, we're part of that crowd. I mean, you weren't there, but I think that's the sentiment, right? We want to figure some stuff out. We want to understand what should we do, what position should the U.S. take, the world take, our hearts take, our soul takes. What should we do? I mean, I don't know your first reaction. I wrote down a couple of reactions. I think people do have, some reaction. Our first reaction to something like this, for some of us, it's fear, right? It's fear because, it's like you got some, you don't know what else to do. I mean, that's how you process this. You're like, well, I should be afraid, and maybe that's how I should act, and this is how I take what's going on, the ambiguity, the abstract, and the complexity of a terror attack or terrorism. I should just, here's how I'm going to process it. I'm going to be afraid. So you get to do that. And I think that's how some people, we react and we process. Some people process with anger. Your first reaction is, I want to kill someone. Right? I mean, some of you, don't raise your hands. Because I think you're like, you get angry. You're like, you know what? And then you've probably, maybe you even said it. Maybe it's on Facebook and we just need to read your status. I mean, you're angry. You are angry. And why? Because anger, again, allows us to be in control a little bit. We feel like we're in control. Hey, I mean, no one's really listening to you, but anyways, you just think that you're in control. Right? You should be loud enough. You're loud enough to get enough attention, and maybe you feel like you're on solid ground when you're angry. For some, I wrote down, it's blame. Our first reaction is blame. You know what? I'll tell you whose fault this is. And then we can just put in whatever, right? I think if you look at the people we get to blame, I think we blamed everybody. Right? It's the refugees, it's the administration, it's this, it's our weak stance, it's this, it's that. We have enough people to blame. Again, blame allows us to do what? It allows us to sometimes mentally fix the problem. It's like this, it's like you're not going to fix it, you know this, but if you can blame someone, you at least know, well, I just fixed the problem. How do you fix the problem? Well, we found out that they're the problem. You know, it happens at work. If you just blame someone, you kind of think you fixed something. You didn't. And I think for some of us as Christians, we just want to blame someone, or we want to be afraid, or that's what we do, or we get angry. We should be angry, or we do another thing, and that's anxiety. We react. Our first reaction is anxiousness. It's not totally fear. You're not like thinking it's going to happen in Huntersville or in Concord or in Charlotte, or in the university city. You're not thinking it's going to happen here, but you're just anxious about everything. Part of the problem is you've been watching too much Fox News, You need to shut that off. Or you've been watching the news feed and you're like, and you're like, you don't know what to do. And the way you process this is that you're going to continue processing this. And you're just anxious. That's our first reaction. But how do we react? And that going back to that moment where that lady asked me this question, what do we do? What should be our position? What should be our position? And I mentioned this a little bit in our weekend services this past Sunday, but I want to just elaborate on that. We do have a position. We do. You see, it's moments like this, and I'll just assume that we're all Christians. And if we are all Christians, if we are all Christians, then we in this moment, in moments like this, something different happens, where you and me become us. And us becomes we. And if you follow me with this, we become the church. And so when we are together right now, at least this moment, and for all believers, we are the church. And so let's find out what should be our first reaction, what should be the position of the church. Because I know, we're not alone in this. You know that, right? Well, it's not you and me, it's us. So what should be the position of us, the church? See, the church wants to play a position that it does not have, right? It's like, I want to be the striker. We want to make the policies. We want to elect the right people. We want to do certain things. We want to do many things. The problem is, we, the church, is not in a position if it's the church. Now, people in the church, you should do that, and you should do what you do. But as the church, we have a position to play, and no other entity, no other organization, club, group, community, no other group can play that position. Like, we're the only ones who can play this particular position. We're the only ones who can take this position and actually make a difference. And if we embrace our position, if the church embraces and plays its position, because no one else is doing it, or is called to do it, or will think of doing it, we have to have a position. And that position, friends, is not a statement or an idea or a solution. The position is actually physically on our knees. Like, that is the position the church gets to play. Because no one else is getting on their knees. Did you know that? No one else is thinking this way. No one else is called to do this. But when we, the church, when we position ourselves like this and we pray, no one else gets to do this. Because what we're called to do and no one else is called to do. The problem is, if you're like me, I want to move away from being the church and I want to go, well, let me just tell you what we should do. Can you elect me for just an hour? Like, I got insider information. Like, I can do this, I can do that. I'm an expert. I got a beard. You know, I got stuff. I'm from the Middle East. I mean, that's not my position to play. Let me tell you, let me give you a picture of what the position is that we are called to play. Let me give you kind of a look into a very interesting conversation. It's found in the book of Daniel. We'll put it up on screens for you guys. So here's what happens in the book of Daniel. And it starts off in chapter 10. And this is the conversation that Daniel's having with an angelic being. Then he said, don't be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day you began to pray for understanding and to humble yourself before God, your request had been heard in heaven. I have come in answer to your prayers. But for 21 days, the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia, not just a movie, blocked my way. Keeps going and says, then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me. And I left him there with the spirit of the prince of the kingdom of Persia. Now I'm here to explain what will happen to your people in the future, for this vision concerns a time yet to come. This is a crazy conversation that the guy, Daniel, who's in one sense part of the church, is having with an angelic being, because he's been praying, he's been fasting, he's having this moment, he's been on his knees, and he's having this conversation with an angel, and then this angel is saying, I'm sorry I'm late. Which your buddies don't even tell you, when they show up late. You're like, hey, traffic. This angel is going, hey, I meant to be here earlier. Which Daniel's like, what are you, who are you? He's like, yeah, you know what happened? Let me just explain. I got an answer. Like the archangel, yeah, we're fighting, and it was too much for me. And what do you think Daniel's thinking? TMI, too much information? Or he's thinking, are you kidding me? This stuff happens? You're telling me that when I pray, there's spiritual activity that takes place? You're telling me that when I pray, like my prayers affect heaven and earth, or at least the unseen world? You're telling me that there are forces that I can't see? There's another war going on that I don't know about, but somehow I have tapped into this? Is Daniel thinking? I'm sure he is. He's thinking, hold on. You're telling me that I just got to step into a supernatural conversation just because I did two things. I, one, humbled myself, and then I prayed. You're telling me that transports me into a dimension that I cannot see, and things are happening? To which the archangel or the angel would say, yeah. What do you think prayer is? Like, what do you... prayer is it's not the word you use to have a conversation with God. Prayer Daniel, I don't know if you know this, but it changes everything. It changes the game. It's a weapon. It's something that's beyond your imagination here. I wrote down a couple of things. Do you know what prayer does? I like this saying. And you know this. It kind of allows us to slay some things. Slay, like kill. It allows us to slay some inner demons. You realize that? And it allows us to, in fact, actually slay some outer dragons in our lives that want to just create havoc. I wrote down a few more things. What this means is that you've experienced this. If you've prayed and you've accessed peace that you don't know how because it's surpassed understanding, right? When you prayed, you remembered something. You reminded your soul about something, right? When you pray, something happens. You go, oh, right. When you pray, you get understanding, don't you? You get this idea, you get this thought, it enlightens your crisis, your situation. You go, wow. What do you think that is? That's supernatural. Prayer also does a couple of other things, which is very interesting. It binds the enemy. Binds the enemy. It puts up protection, supernatural protection. It feeds, it's fuel for angelic beings fighting on your behalf. Prayer also does another thing, it looses blessing. Which is really strange. Why? Because it allows you to access faith, that intangible thing that you don't know, but you need to know and you need to have. Prayer does that. It's not just a conversation. It's more than a conversation. Jesus said it this way in Matthew 18. Let me put this up for you guys. It says this. Matthew 18 says, I tell you the truth, whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. I also tell you this, that if two of you agree on earth concerning anything you ask my Father in heaven to do it for you, for where there are two or three gathered as followers, I am there among them. Jesus is saying you have power by prayer to access and to control things you do not see. Now let's make this tangible right here. Let's make this real life. So as I was talking to this person and trying to answer this question about 9/11, right? Like how do you avoid that? And I told him about the position that the church needs to play and what people need to it's not the first reaction that we have. That's not what we need to lean into. We need to lean into our only position or our first position as a church. And so as I was trying to explain this to people, obviously some of you and some of those crowd people were consumed with their fear. Or, yes, we need to pray, but. And I said this, okay, and I hope this makes sense to you. Let me just tell you, there are about 140, 150 people who died, right? Do you think the terrorist attacks, at least in Paris, that those terrorist attacks, those terrorists, they got up that morning and they planned to kill about 100 to 150 people? No. They planned to kill thousands. Thousands. In 9/11, we had 3,000-4,000 people die. The plan was not to kill 3,000 or 4,000. It was to kill tens of thousands. The suicide bombers who went to the soccer field to blow up the entire soccer field killed a dozen people, maybe 24. There were tens of thousands of people there. The club they went into, 1,000 people in that club. They have full access to it. 80 people. And so I told this lady, and I have to tell you guys, do you know what happened there? God. God happened there. God happened there. I can tell you, as a Middle Eastern man, I know Muslim brothers who have seen visions of Jesus and they're not even pursuing him. They've seen visions of Jesus, and then they go to a church and they say, I don't know, this man told me that I need to be saved. And I told this person, I'm telling you, and I think we need to tell all your friends too. You don't think God can supernaturally show up to a suicide bomber and say, you're not going to blow all these people up. I'm going to make something happen. Your plan was to kill thousands and thousands. It's not going to happen. Do you know why we're not seeing even more thousands and tens of thousands of people dying? Because there is an entity. There is an organization, a tribe, a community. Do you know who I'm talking about? It's the church. And the church has been praying and praying and praying and praying and praying. So can I just remind your soul, that you're called to do something that only you can do because you're the church. But if we spend our time on Facebook, if we spend our time talking to people instead of changing heaven, then we're missing. We're not playing the only position we can play as a church. Is there stuff to do? Of course there is. Of course there is. But we're called to do this one thing, and that is to pray. To pray. Can I read you another passage of scripture? It's Matthew 16. This is Jesus again. Matthew 16. So Peter has just said, Jesus, you are the Son of God. Who do you think who do I think you are? Let me just tell you, I think you are the Son of the living God. And then Jesus says this, I'm sure you've read this before. He says, on this rock, on this confession, Peter, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Who is you? The church. And whatever you bind on earth, again, bind on earth, shall be bound in what? In heaven. And whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Heaven. I wonder, what if we were to believe that? You know, what if we were to fully believe that? I think there are some, could it be, don't you have things that you need to loose in your life? Is there things that they're binding you up, but you need to bind? Isn't there thoughts in your life that there are words that people have spoken over you, things that you think about that you just need to arrest and put in a corner or kick out of your life? Isn't there something in heaven you need to loose? Is there something you need to get access to get understanding for? To have peace? To remind your soul, is there something? Is there something you need to bind? Is there something you need to loose? I think it starts with not you knowing the right things. I think it starts with you knowing that there's only one thing you can do, is you can pray.